All right, because I wanted to say, look, we're about to do another show.
We are, yeah.
Right? And you found this guest, right? What is the idea?
So his name is Carlos Peña.
Okay.
And I've known him for a couple of years. And, well, a lot of our shows some of them start with the location.
Right.
And I think this one was possibly location first.
Yeah.
And since we are in City Hall, we're on the second floor, the auditorium or ballroom, as they sometimes call it. You know, I see City Hall as obviously a bit of a seat of power in Holyoke,
Right.
Certainly in the past and currently. And just loosely, the idea I had was, you know, power and influence in Holyoke, in any city. You know, how does one go about doing things in this city? Right. And I know that Carlos is a person who is really doing quite a bit, very active socially in the city. And so I thought he would be a perfect person to discuss this topic. Maybe I'm wrong, but you never know. So
well, we've often been wrong.
Oh yeah.
So we can go ahead and be that.
Doesn't stop us.
But
in
I
the
think
least
we ought
bit.
to have him come in and see if he's wrong or right.
Okay.
Today.
All right.
Carlos, are you around? Come on over and
are
join
you ready
us.
to be tested to see if you're right or wrong?
Yeah, we could test it out.
Be a part of And Now, right? Which is the idea is we're just going to discuss how things are with you and in Holyoke, right? And he's put a nice little preface on it, but why don't you explain how you feel like, does this architecture affect you? Look where you are.
I love architecture. It brings a certain kind of feeling to you when you see it, like just the detail and I guess it's really the love that has been put into it. And that makes me feel good as an artist. I don't know if that makes sense. Like,
does it have special significance though? If you're, living in Holyoke and you've invested a good bit of your own energy here.
Yeah, of course. And it kind of reminds me of New York. So since I'm from New York City, the architecture in Holyoke kind of resonated with me. And it made me feel a certain type of way. And when I came into the city, that was the first draw, like, oh, this is kind of like New York. It's a feeling of the Bronx in New York City.
Oh, interesting.
And that really drew me to it. And New York City is a heavy population of Puerto Rican people, and over here in Holyoke is a densely population, actually the most per capita Puerto Rican people that there are in the United States. Yeah. So that all kind of resonated with me.
You mean the proportion here?
The proportion,
yes.
exactly.
What are we,
so
52%
really?
Latino?
But,
52,
but
53.
you're not Puerto Rican.
No, I'm not Puerto Rican.
Does that matter?
It doesn't, because as far as being, I don't like to consider myself Latin or Latin American or what's another one?
Hispanic.
Hispanic. Like all those words don't describe me, and I don't use them to describe myself. So I consider myself Afro-Indigenous or Afro-Taino, and that's what I identify as.
Interesting.
But Dominicans and Puerto Ricans are next door neighbors, where we are made up of the same people, which are African people, Taino people, and Spain people from Spain. So it's a mixture of those, and we have those things in us. Even Cuba, we're all a mixes of those things.
Right, but you're in Holyoke, so did Holyoke offer something special other than that? Because the history of this place is immigration and industry, and now it's not quite like that.
No, well, time changes everything. And since we're in a more modern age, Puerto Ricans that used to come here and do the job that they used to do, the farming and things like that, working in the mills, since time has changed, that place is not here anymore for them. So those aren't the things that they're doing. They're more assimilated into the space itself. Plenty of people here in the town hall that work here now. Josh Garcia is a Puerto Rican mayor, the first here in Holyoke. So all those things play into it, right? Into the change of what Holyoke is and what it was.
When you first arrived here, I wonder if, because I had a similar experience, I was thinking, well, this is a city after all.
Right.
And I started immediately reading and hearing about the history of Holyoke, how 100 years ago it had the highest percentage of millionaires in the country, and you know, and I mean, you could see it in the architecture again,
Yeah, you can tell.
and in you know, in this edifice, and in the housing stock around, some of the mansions that have been around, and you know, understandably, because it was a center of industry. I mean, it was, you know, 100+ years ago. This is where a lot was happening.
This was it.
It was it.
This was it.
So we have Holyoke, which is a city. I mean, it has also not really ever achieved its potential as far as population.
Right.
It was a planned city. That's why they call it Paper City. You know, designed to have a population of up to 175,000 people, and I don't think it ever
Never
passed.
reached that, yeah.
Did it even reach 100,000? I think it was at 80,000 at its peak.
I think at the peak, yeah, it was like 80.
And we're hovering around 40,000 now. So here we are, a city that you know, had its heyday in industry, but of course, like so many other towns and cities, we're adapting, we're converting, we're pivoting, and there's a lot that is happening now. And so maybe you could tell us a little bit about your project and what's going on with that.
Yeah. My project, well, I mean, it's a long project. So me coming into the city when I was younger in 98,
Yes.
the city was different. It had more of a feel of, it was more, I guess you could say, broken down. It wasn't as fixed up as it is today. So looking at that time period and me coming in here and where I am now, I kind of had a time period away from the space in New York City where I was living, and then just seeing everything that was happening in New York in the area that I was in, which is Harlem. It was the Clinton area. Clinton had moved into his offices into Harlem, so there was a lot of gentrification happening.
Yeah.
And my rent just went skyrocket. I was paying $900, and then all of a sudden it went up to $2,500.
Wow.
So I said, it's time to go. So I came back over here and started looking at what I really wanted to do here. When I got into Holyoke, I started seeing that gentrifying was happening here also. So I said to myself, even though I am a gentrifier, even though I am Hispanic or Latin, what people want to label me as, I saw that I didn't want to do the same thing that was done to me in New York City. So as the city was growing, I said to myself, well, me and my partner, Katie, we said, how do we want to implement ourselves in the city? What can we do and how can we do it? So we went about seeing what is needed in the community and talk to different people and see how we can facilitate that. We saw that there wasn't a lot of art for people of color here, although there was 53% Puerto Rican population.
Yeah.
So I saw that was off, and I felt personally that the youth would benefit from art. I think the community in general benefits from art.
Absolutely.
If you see at different time periods, you would see that the first thing that these people of power do is take away art and culture from these spaces, or not fund them as much as they should be funded, and they put money into other things. And me and my partner felt that we needed to facilitate that and make it a space where people of color can come and actually use it and benefit from it and see what happens.
Yeah.
And in doing that, we found out that it was needed. So we started working with the community. The first thing I did was be part of the community, right? You come into a community, how can you become part of it in order to do what you want to do within the community, not harming the people that are there?
Absolutely.
So we went ahead and started working on how can we facilitate this and how can we make it happen. And the way that we did that was by asking people, talking to people, seeing what the school district was like, seeing what was missing in the school district, and kind of trying to implement that within ourselves.
It's a beautiful day in Holyoke, MA. We're here in the studio, getting some work done. Youth entrepreneurship. You see how they're doing this thing right here. Learning a lot, getting stuff done. Log on papercityclothingcompany.com and donate so we can continue doing this great work in our community. We got a $20K grant if we can get $20K, and we're depending on you, our community, to do so. So help us out. Let us keep these kids working and being happy.
We did, youth entrepreneurship that we're doing. We did workshops, free workshops for different people. The way that I got involved with the community was by being on the board of a organization, a nonprofit, and that nonprofit was Nueva Esperanza, which is a organization that is focused on the access of property to people of color, or Puerto Rican people at the time. And Carlos Vega, bought these buildings so that they can have some weight for the people, so that the people can see that you can own your own business or establishment or property and kind of own it and grow from there. And it's still going today. I joined the organization. I was part of it. Mayor Josh Garcia was on that board with me at the time. So I got to really know him intimately, got to know the people that were on the board, got to know the community, got to know different people. And from there, it grew. So I was able to be part of the community and not gentrify the community in a space that in a different way, in an affecting way, but in a nurturing and
This is a lot. I think that what we've done with the other shows, and I think And Now is really about also, is not just what people are doing, but who they are. And I think that some things I know about you could share more significantly, because I think you were given a kind of cultural silver spoon as a young man and sent to a private school that had a certain thing in mind, right? Even though, and this is the biggest endowed, the private school with the biggest endowment, $15 billion or whatever it is. And he's there and they're paying everything, doing everything for you. And they had something in mind for you. You're not doing that. I wanted you to say, what did you see there? And why didn't you end up in the boardroom somewhere?
Wow. That's a great question. So we're dealt with the world and the lack of people of color being accepted into spaces, right? So that's a big part of why I'm not in a boardroom or why I'm not in a mayor's office sitting down.
But they thought, even though that you're of color, that you could fit in there. Tell me about that school. What didn't that matter to you?
Of course. I think that in the school.
Can we name it?
Yeah, sure.
So it's Milton
Hershey School.
Hershey School.
In Hershey, Pennsylvania.
Chocolate money.
We'll ask them for sponsorship.
There you go.
Yes,
there you go. And so in the school, they empower you. They give you the opportunity to feel empowered. There's people there that really care about you. They're really invested in you. They love their job. So it's a different atmosphere, opposed to being in a job that you don't want to do and you have to do it because your financials is not straight and it's something that you have to do. Over there, it's not like that. It's a real family. Like it's a real loving environment for kids, and it's from K to 12. So it's pretty amazing. And they do pay for everything. They pay for your dentist. They pay for your medical. They pay for your clothes. They have this big warehouse where you just walk in with the cart and you're allowed to get underwear, socks, t-shirts, shirts. So it was really helping me organize my life as a human being. What are the things that you are not taught in regular world if you don't have a stable household that can prepare you for the world? And I think that's what they do. We sit down at a table for dinner, everybody sits down at the table. For breakfast, we always have breakfast. The kids are the ones that make the breakfast. So it's a real environment of love, nurture, and teaching about life and how you should act, behave, and be in life. Prepare you for that type of thing.
So it prepared you well.
Yeah, I would say so.
But here's the thing is that, because I've heard other stories about that school, you feel...
Well, we're going to lose our sponsorship now.
Well,
come on, watch what you're saying.
I am being careful. But the question of whether they have ripped you out of your roots, right? And you're comfortable here in Holyoke, right? But it's a different world entirely.
Of course. I was in New York City till about 13. So at 13, I was in Milton Hershey, so 7th grade. It was culture shock. In New York City, where I'm from, is Washington Heights, and in Washington Heights, everybody's Dominican.
Yeah.
Everything is Dominican.
Yeah.
Everybody's talks Spanish. So I was within my culture in the city, even though I wasn't in the Dominican Republic, but it felt very much like it. Yeah. And now going into Milton Hershey, it was just like, whoa, what is this? So it was a lot of culture shock. First few 6 months, I cried to sleep every night. I wasn't where my mom was. My mom threw me away. These were my thoughts as a 13-year-old. My mom doesn't want me. She's putting me in this school, and it wasn't like that. So, of course, if it wasn't for the school, I probably wouldn't be here right now. So
really?
Definitely. I was at the time that my mom put me into school, I was a lot in the streets. It's New York City in the 80s, late 80s. Sure. Early 90s, and you already knew where a person like me would end up at that time period in New York City. It was a crack epidemic. There was a lot of stuff going on. I mean, you could check the news, you could check the archives of what it was back in the day.
Well, so you went to UMass after that, and you became an expert in primates and all this sort of stuff. And all of that, in a way, prepared you for this. Do you feel that?
Well, I mean, the journey definitely prepared me for it. I didn't know at the time, and looking back now, I can definitely say my journey prepared me for that. I didn't think I was going to be doing this. I used to do art when I was little. Like I would graffiti. I would be in the streets graffitiing. I would, do hats for my friends, the bill of the hat. I would do their shoes, color their shoes. And this is in the 80s, you know? And that got taken away from me because there was other things. As you grow up, you leave those things and you kind of have to do things that you have to do. Yeah. And you forget about those things. And I never knew that right now I would be doing art or introducing kids to art or be in this position, owning a building from this. It's pretty amazing.
So can you go back to just talking a bit about the building, since you just mentioned it now? And so I don't know if do you have a new name for the organization? Because I know it's Paper City Clothing and then Artesana. Are they both still coming back together in the same building?
Yeah, we're still doing, we're still working together. Artesana is I like to say our sister nonprofit organization, even though we're not a nonprofit, but that's the way that we work as a nonprofit. I kind of lost my train of thought.
Well, that's fine. But actually, what I wanted also to definitely make sure we talked about was the process of acquiring this building and now fitting it out. And, I know you have a fundraiser going on now. How has the experience been of trying to achieve what you're trying to achieve, with the city, with the contractors? I mean, is it smooth sailing? Is it difficult? Is it really difficult? How's that going? I mean, what kind of influence do you have?
I feel like I have no influence. I feel like I'm still
I beg to differ, but
trying to get into that scene, and owning a building now just puts me in a different realm. Yes. And I can tell and see it and feel it. Yeah. The way people act towards you, how people accept you a little bit more. Yeah. So it's just weird to me because I'm still in this space like, oh, this is a weird feeling that I'm not familiar with.
So the fact that you own a building and now you're talking to contractors, do you think in a weird way it does give you a certain amount of credibility? I mean, I do speak somewhat from experience, but I'm curious. It does change.
Yeah, it does change. People look at you different. And it's the same thing with money, right? So when you have money, people are like, oh, they look at you different. Yeah. When you don't have money, they're like, they look at you different.
That's a simple fact.
It's a simple fact. Yeah, it's just something that's evident. So I have felt that. I don't know if it's been easier or more difficult as far as contractors and all that. I don't think I know enough right now at this stage in my life to know about those things, to be like, oh, that's how you're supposed to do it. Or, oh, I could have did that. But I'm sure when I finish all this, those questions will definitely come up.
Well, it's a learning process. And by the time you're done with this, I can guarantee you'll know a lot about just about every aspect of construction, which is actually kind of cool.
That's why sometimes I call you and I'm like, hey, Dennis, like,
good.
What's going on?
Yeah, and I'll be calling you for some stuff as well. But
so when he was talking about coming here and fitting in, I was going to say, did you think of it as a job? Do you ever think you have a job to do with your life?
I never thought about it like that. I do know I have a purpose. I don't consider it a job, Yeah.
And
that's-
go ahead
I-
and go ahead and give it to us. What kind of purpose do you have figured out?
Well, I think that I'm here to improve the life of young people.
Fantastic.
Yeah,
That's well put. Yeah. And admirable.
plain and simple.
What about us old dogs?
We are
Got
on our
nothing-
way out.
Got nothing for the old people. Come on.
Yeah, well, we're on our way out. So I mean, we don't. I mean,
yourself and ours.
yes, for sure. Parade. What's 5 years? What's 6 years? There's only the amount of things that you can do in that time period, right? So I mean,
thank you.
after that, it's and it's good to understand that you're not going to be here, that you're leaving. So
I like
if you do understand that and know it,
Yeah.
then you know that you have to do a little bit more, or you know how much you have to do, or you know how much time makes you go.
Yeah,
Like when you're late or when you're about to be late, for some reason your batteries get on. Let's go.
In the end, ultimately, for each individual human being, time is finite.
Correct.
But you're then having to talk other people to join you here, it seems. Like it isn't just you on a street corner.
Well, it's not as much as joining, but as much as trying to change their mindset. Right? Most people are like, oh, we could do this, we could do that. Young people, they're like, oh, I could spend $1 million on sneakers. And their parents are like, oh,
They are not.
I have to buy my son this shoe, or and I want to be able to change these people's mindset, because there's something greater than just looking good, having expensive stuff, or having $1 million. A lot of kids now, they're like, oh, I'm going to be rich by the time I'm 20. And I'm like, you better win the lottery, or you
Right.
better find a
Wait
rich
till you're
person.
25. I mean, come on.
Wait till you're 25. Yeah. So
Like
changing the mindset
Yeah.
is very difficult. And in having a relationship, so I work at Lighthouse, and I see that having this personal relationship with an individual
Yeah.
Right.
is a way to change their mindset
Yeah.
and to make them think different, so that their life is better.
So you're optimistic in a way.
Oh, definitely.
Definitely. I mean,
You
you're
always
not,
have to be.
You're not looking over the ramparts saying, I wonder where I'm going next. Holyoke is your place?
Yeah, Holyoke is my place. I've
He
set.
bought a building here.
Just waiting him to
I mean, I bought a house. My
Right.
partner has a house here. We bought this building, so it's Holyoke is my home.
Fantastic. Well, this has been great. You think we're
pretty good.
Does this feel like an episode?
I'm not sure yet, frankly.
sure.
How were you? Do you feel you were good?
I try to just,
I think
sit back and relax.
that you're amazing that you made the choices
Yeah.
that you did to get here, because I was
Agreed.
plowing back a little in your past to say, there's a moment where people sort of see it differently entirely, and are in the boardroom, no matter what color they are, when they come out of that place called Milton Hershey. So anyhow, we welcome you, but I'm Phil, relatively new. This is the guy, the real estate broker here. He's the guy that basically, he's doing it his way.
Well, thank you. And I've been here for 17 years, so I'm definitely a Holyoker, but I'm not born and raised. But I feel like now that I'm here,
Right.
this is the place where I want to make a difference and put all my efforts and concentration, and I'd like to think that's what I'm doing.
Do.
Yeah. Well, you are doing that, and I mean, you could see the impact that you have done just on Ray Street alone.
Well, thank you. Thanks for coming.
Thank you for having me, guys. Really appreciate you guys.